Welcome back to the Wandering Star Farmhouse. Today I'm going to be recapping how we did on the Pantry Challenge in January and February. I'm going to let you know what we learned and how that is going to inform some of the goals that we make for our homestead for this next year. One of the things that was pretty challenging about it was that we actually cook a lot differently in the winter than in the summer. And it's much more intensive in the winter. It's a lot more work. A lot of times in the summertime, we were doing charcuterie boards before that was a thing. That's the way our family just eats a lot. We've got quite a few kids, and we just spread out a bunch of food that's healthy and fresh and let the kids go at it. So I don't cook so much in the summertime. The first thing I wanted to talk about was our storage crops. So I set the goal to use up as many of our storage crops as possible. I have one butternut squash left. We used the rest of them. So I think that was 4 total that we used, and this was the 5th because I found one more after I shot my original video. I'm really pleased with that. I grew 1 butternut squash plant last year, and I think I might as well grow 2 this year just to make sure we end up with as many as we want. We're also going to be trying to grow a bigger pumpkin patch this year though, and so sometimes the butternut squash and the pumpkin are interchangeable in terms of what we're going to be cooking with them. The next thing was the sweet potatoes that we produced on the farm. We ate up almost all of those except for these last handful of little tiny ones. And I purposefully didn't cook with these because what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprout these for this next year. So I have already got this container with potting soil in it, and I'm going to go ahead and take these and I'm just going to nestle them down in here. We're about 10 weeks out from our last frost date at this point. So this should be a good time for these to, good girl. This should be a good time for them to start sprouting, and then I'll slip them off and help them grow roots. And so I definitely will take you along on that whole journey of trying to sprout our own sweet potatoes this year. Funnily enough, I actually found the tag to the original sweet potatoes I bought last year this week in my bathroom. The only way I can figure out how this ended up in my bathroom was that probably when I was planting them, I took this out of my plant and slipped it in my pocket. And so I probably, and then it ended up in one of my bathroom drawers. So these are Beauregard sweet potatoes. We made a good dent in our storage carrots. We still have a few pounds left, but we've been using those in everything. And so that was just very exciting. That was probably one of our most successful crops in terms of producing what it was that we needed and wanted for this winter. So I do plan on sowing some earlier carrots in the spring to eat in the summertime, but these carrots were sown in June after we arrived here on our new homestead. And so I do want to do another sowing of carrots at that time as well, because those are the ones that stay into the ground up until the time of frost and end up with this kind of extra sweet flavor that's just really good. Now, the other storage crops that we grew, we were actually out of before we even started the Pantry Challenge. So that is onions and potatoes. So I already showed you, I've got my onions started for this year. This is the yellow sweet Spanish onion. And then I have another container like this of purple onions that are just starting. And so I hope I get a nice little onion forest from them too. And then I think I still am going to probably buy some onion starts to plant as well, because I really would like to have a good supply of onions in the storage. It's time to go and purchase seed potatoes right now, and I plan on getting them in the ground around St. Patrick's Day. We're gonna do peas and potatoes on St. Patrick's Day. That is appropriate for our weather here and in relation to our last frost date. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was my home canned jars of preserves. And my kids really loved the bottled peaches. They were kind of like a treat that I would get out once in a while. And we do have a couple of those jars left. I probably would do about the same amount next year. I don't like to rely on those. You probably saw in a lot of my pantry cooking videos that we had plenty of fresh citrus produce on hand this winter. I'm an Arizona girl. I have to have my citrus in the winter time, and really fresh seasonal produce is created to help your body in the season that it is fresh in. And so obviously in the winter time when we're trying to stay healthy, we get a lot of good vitamin C to help boost our immunity. And so we did have a lot of fresh citrus. And so I don't necessarily want to rely on too many bottled fruits. We have a few jars of pickles left as well. We didn't actually find that we ate a ton of pickles this winter, but I do anticipate that we'll probably eat more of those as we come into the summertime. So that'll be interesting to see. But the one thing is, my kids did say when we started opening the bottled pickles, they said that they preferred the refrigerator pickles that we had made earlier last summer to the bottled pickles. And it's probably a texture thing. I don't know. I really struggle too with the acidity of vinegar pickles. So I really probably need to try fermented pickles this summer. I bought some supplies to do it last year and never got around to it. So I think we will be trying more refrigerator pickles and try some fermented pickles as well, rather than jarring a bunch of them. This year I would like to can more green beans. And I canned a lot of beans, but a lot of them were my dragon tongue beans that are so fun and they look so beautiful fresh. But when you cook them and jar them, they just kind of turn to this kind of bland, pale color. I preferred the look on the plate. It was more appetizing, the green beans, as opposed to those canned dragon tongue beans. So I want to can more green beans this summer. We have quite a few jars of salsa left as well. And I think the same thing when we get more towards summer, I think we'll start eating chips and salsa more. That's like a regular snack for us. And we didn't eat as much chips and salsa over the winter. We ate a bunch of jellies and jams, and we still have a bunch left. That's good, because that's kind of something that we constantly need and want for sandwiches and for pancakes and that kind of thing. So I definitely ended up the pantry challenge with a lot more empty jars than I started with. And I am looking at those jars and excited for what we're gonna do with them this summer. It costs money to buy the canning lids, so I'm not of the mind to can a bunch of beans or something that I could just as easily throw in the crock pot for the day, or throw in the crock pot overnight and have them ready to eat the next day. So the next area was our freezer. The two main things that we were eating from our freezers was our corn that we grew and our turkeys that we raised. And we ate a couple of turkeys, and we still have one turkey left, and then a bag or two of pieces. Jeremy broke down one of the turkeys into pieces, and so we have a bag or two of that as well. The corn, we got about halfway through the corn. We'll continue eating through that over the next couple months before this year's corn comes in. One thing I'm not gonna do this year is to freeze any creamed corn. This was our corn tool that we used this last year, and what it has is it's got this blade right here, and you push the corn along here and it slices the corn kernels off. But then there's this other piece that goes up that you can push that one up, and what that does is it kind of scrapes the cob as you rub it past, and that gets more of the milk and the little leftover bits. That is what creamed corn really is that corn mixed in with all that milky stuff and the little bits left over. But I couldn't really find a good way of using that. I tried to kind of bake it into some more like puddingy type things, and my kids were just like, ugh, they're like, this tastes like soggy cornbread. And so I think since we have the farm animals, like the chickens and the pigs that would just chew on those corn cobs and get the milk and the rest of the little corn bits off there, I don't think I'm gonna worry with trying to scrape off every last bit, because I just didn't find that it was in a usable format that my family liked. The other thing we were eating off in our freezer was the quarter beef that we bought in the fall. I think that was a good investment. We actually eat meat sparingly, and so we're not just having meat every meal and every night. And so I think the quarter beef was good for us. We could maybe go up to a half beef, but we definitely eat more beef through the winter than we would during the summer as well. Another thing we were pulling from in the pantry challenge was our dry goods storage, and it's really a part of our kind of religious cultural heritage to keep a large pantry of dry goods on hand at all times. So I didn't have any problem with sugar or flour or oatmeal or any of those things. We had plenty of that stuff through the whole time and didn't need to buy any of that. I will say one thing is I had enough pasta to do the different pasta dishes that I wanted, but basically I ran out of anything except for macaroni, because I'll just buy an assortment of things and they're just in the pantry, and so I was going through some of the boxed pastas and things that we had, and I ended up with like only macaroni. And so I definitely was like, I think this dish would be better with not macaroni, but we were using macaroni instead. So just a mental note to myself to keep some more of the different varieties of pasta on hand. The next category we were using in our Homestead challenge was our fresh homestead goods right now, and that is milk and eggs. And the milk has been coming in, and I had a goal to, manage that milk flow well. And so I did a lot of, I liked this challenge because it encouraged me to be working on that and to be just conscious of it. I got in a good routine of skimming cream and making butter regularly. And then I made lemon cheese quite a few times. And we made mozzarella quite a few times. And then I made sour cream a bunch. I told you about how I was enjoying making sour cream. So the things that I didn't get to, I had talked about yogurt. I didn't actually ever get to working on yogurt. And then the other thing was I didn't ever get to making any hard cheeses. And I rectified that this last week. You can see here I have my first farmhouse cheddar that is now drying on the counter. And then I'll go put it in cold storage for a couple months. Then we'll see how it tastes, I guess. The last thing I kind of count in this category of constantly incoming Homestead foods is actually bone broth. I feel like when you're eating in this Homestead way and you're using whole cuts of meat or whole animals, that you end up with these bones. And so making the bone broth is just a constant part of that. And since it is so constant, it's just part of my fridge management to use the bone broth regularly. And so there again, I haven't really canned much bone broth at all because it's just always coming in. And so sometimes if I make a big batch, I'll freeze a couple quarts of it and then have a couple quarts in the fridge. But I'm just constantly going through those. So I did mention we weren't 100% grocery store free, but we put in a real good effort. I'm really pleased with what we were able to accomplish, and I'm really pleased with how it has given us a lot of information for what to grow and how much to grow on our farm this next year. I'm gonna go take these sweet potatoes and put them somewhere kind of in the dark until they start sprouting, and then I'll be bringing them back out. If you want to follow along on all of our adventures on the homestead this year, please click subscribe, and I'll see you next time.